So we are talking about the downfall of the Duce. Well, one moment, I'll just share without the images. Like so, is the image up?
Just give it a few seconds. There he is. Oh, the beautiful Dolce himself.
Yeah. Now, Italy, when it entered the war in 1940, just really entered opportunistically or out of fear that Germany might retaliate against them for not joining to support. There was a case for both uh, arguments. Now, what ends up happening is since they are quite under industrialized, even worse in Germany, they have even fewer resources. They're not able to really equip up army despite, and they have a lot of commitments, right? They have hundreds of thousands of soldiers in North Africa and in Greece, etc. And with the lack of men tending to the farms, the harvests have been poor. That I read somewhere that by early 1943, so this is around the time of the Battle of the Kasserine Pass, around that time. So it's late Feb. It was one of the ministers had told Mussolini that, or I think it was Ciano, my bad, that he needs to cut the daily rationing. And for the adults, it would be slightly under, like for the adult males. Now it is going to be slightly under 1,000 calories a day. So it's getting pretty bad, especially in the cities. Now, I think by mid-July, even the fascist council had enough. They wanted to get rid of Mussolini and just extricate themselves from the war. Now, there are concerns. They don't know how the Germans will react, and they correctly guess that that's gonna be pretty violent, especially if they decide to take themselves out of the war. Now, what the main thing was they had to convince the king. So even though Mussolini is called the father of fascism and such, he did not have absolute power in his own country like how Hitler did. The king still had a lot of power, and King Vittorio Emmanuel III, who was the current reigning monarch, he was finally convinced as the United States Strategic Air Forces under General Dewey Spaatz started to not only target the Balkans, but they also made raids into the train marshalling yards in Rome and central and northern Italy as well. Luckily, not a lot of the Roman stuff actually got preserved, and I'm quite happy for that, given my love for the ancient Romans. But that was the event that tipped the king of Italy to side with the faction that wanted to get rid of Mussolini. Now, the what happened was Mussolini decided to call a Grand Council vote. Now, the Grand Council, as you can see, this is just like an image here, was a body of around 30 people, and these were all the hand-picked loyal subordinates of Mussolini. And they are the de facto executive of the Italian government. So all the ministries and all the executive roles, their members are here. Now, what happens in the shadows is there is a conspiracy where it is proposed that Pietro Badoglio will be made the new prime minister, and they need to have Mussolini arrested. Now, keep in mind that while the Italians are also losing this, suffering this loss of morale, Hitler and the Wehrmacht and the OKW, they're all like, realizing that they are shackled to a corpse. Italy is gonna jump out. But Hitler, while he kind of oscillates between believing it's true, he also has that kind of personal loyalty to Mussolini. And he believes, oh, the Duce is ill, so it's or he's being held hostage against his will. So that's kind of like what is the belief going on with the Führer right now. So around this time, the Germans have already drawn up a few plans to, in the event of Italy's collapse, what they will be doing. I'll get into that in a bit. Now, on 24th of July, now this is the date that is important, Mussolini calls for a Grand Council meeting so that they can discuss the situation of what is going to go on. Now, quite ironically, his wife, she begs him not to go to the Palazzo Venezia today, in Rome that day, because she said something bad is going to happen. They're going to go after you. Please don't go. It's kind of like what Caesar's wife told him on the Ides of March. Well, at least one guy just did not get stabbed.
Not yet.
Not yet, but Caesar got stabbed on the day he went. So I'm just comparing it to that. Now, at the Palazzo Venezia, the same place where in June 1940, Mussolini declared Italy is gonna enter the war and create the new Roman Empire.
Spanning the Mediterranean world.
Well, the only thing is the Romans actually made the Mediterranean Mare Nostrum.
Yeah.
It was RC then, but under Mussolini it was not. It was still the
Not so
British.
much.
Anyways, so at 5:14 p.m. On the 24th of July, the meeting is convened. And keep in mind, one thing is the Vittorio Ambrosio, who is the Comando Supremo. So he is the chief of the Italian military at this point. He's actually stationed 3 motorized divisions just outside Rome. These are men loyal to the Italian military, and they are prepared to defend the city against fascist supporters of Mussolini or the Germans if they retaliate. So it's quite a, the conspirators are prepared for, violence, retaliation from the power. And it's kind of like how Napoleon took the coup of 18 Brumaire, I might add, with the divisions officially there for security, but were actually to kind of intimidate his enemies, anti-Christ. At 5:14, there is the meeting starts, and Mussolini just kind of goes on a rant. Okay, he just speaks non-stop for 2 hours. All right, and then there is debate, and Gardini, who is one member of the Fascist Council, he puts forward a proposal, a vote, right, for these 28 members that are in the council right now. And the vote is for a lot of the powers that Mussolini has as the prime minister equivalent, you could say, to be transferred away from him and to the king. Right. So this is like the legal way to kind of start stripping him of his power and influence. And after a lot of debate between both sides, a vote is put. And it concludes on 25th of July at 3 a.m. with 19 of the 28 members voting for Gardini's proposal, 7 against, and 1 abstained. So it's enough for the vote to be passed. Now, on the 25th of July, in the afternoon, Mussolini goes to meet King Vittorio Emanuele III at Savoia, and at just before 5 p.m., they meet. He tells the king that, yeah, these guys passed this proposal, which is to, transfer power to me from me to you, Your Majesty, but please be assured it has no legal weightage whatsoever, and I will still do my best for Italy. I'm your champion, I'm your guy. And it is at this moment the trap is sprung. The king stops Mussolini from speaking a bit. He says, Italy's on the verge of being ruined, it's on the verge of collapse. There's a broken army, there's no morale, there's no industry, there's nothing. And he says, no one wants to fight, and now they need a new leader. And he said that Mussolini is now going to be removed as prime minister, and Pietro Badoglio will be the new prime minister and in charge. And he says, I'm sorry, there's no other way. And he says, I promise you that you will be safe and at that moment, Mussolini is arrested and driven away from the king's palace. So this is a big blow. Now, the night of the 25th and 26th, the news reaches the Wehrmacht and Hitler. Now, guess who lost his temper?
Seen Mr. Adolf Hitler.
Yep. And according to him, he claims the Soviets are no longer the greatest enemy of the German people. It is Pietro Badoglio. He's this a horrible, slimy guy. He's this evil guy that's, trying to destroy us and everything. I guess, the race war ideology for Hitler was kind of put on pause for a few days while he was raving and ranting about Badoglio and Italian treachery. Now, it was this event more than anything that convinced the German high command that Sicily is now untenable for them. Otherwise, Kesselring's idea, which even the OKW were fine with, was to hold on to, as you said, let me just show up the map here. The Cantina and Santo Stefano line in the northwest corner, where, as you can see, right, the terrain is much higher than the rest of the island, which naturally favors defense and is going to mitigate Allied air power. And there are closer supplies, as Messina can be protected and supplies can be shipped over. But with the fall of the Italian government, they realized that, okay, we cannot keep this. Let's withdraw soldiers from Sicily. So this is one thing that also takes place. Now, Rommel was also given at this time the command of Army Group B. And Hitler also debated about sending 3 panzer divisions to Rome at this moment. So there are not divisions in Italy right now. And the idea is to arrest the king and the members of the government, but Kesselring kind of tells him not to do anything. And the orders of the Führer are from Sicily, all German troops, especially the Fallschirmjäger and the Hermann Göring Panzer Division, are the priority units that have to be withdrawn. Now, at the same time, the Germans also they launched this Operation Battle Axe. I think it's kind of I can't remember the exact German pronunciation, which is German troops are now going to come into Italy and the Balkans and Greece in force and just disarm the Italian armies completely.
In
They don't
German,
trust
it's
them.
Operation Lehrgang.
Yeah, thank you. Much appreciated. But that is a plan. And Rommel is to be put on standby to take command of Army Group B because prior to his deployment onto the Western Front, as we know for D-Day and such, he was actually supposed to command the army groups in the south, the Southern Front. Now, one more thing is also Hitler finally was talked out of the idea of launching a coup against the Italian government by Kesselring and a lot of the Wehrmacht senior staff because they just felt that's not worth the risk. And now, without its main ally, Germany was going to fight a losing war on its own. And there's no turning back now. That would be the fall of Italy, Mussolini and fascist Italy.
Yep. And here, I'm going to toss up actually the same map that you did because you're right to show this actually shows the main line properly. Whereas the other map I had, Mount Etna takes too much of it and it kind of doesn't show off where the units are.